The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 241. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a phenomenal lady on the show. She is an actress, a writer, and a performance maker, and I'm just excited to have her on and share her story with us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Vera Chok. Vera, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Hi, I'm really good and thanks for having me on the show. I'm really honored. Thank you. Where do I start? I'm primarily an actress. Writing has developed over the last few years, and I also make performances which kind of straddle live art and performance art and little films as well. I came to acting quite late, so I've only been acting 9 years. And at the moment, the writing's taking me into interesting avenues. I'm primarily a poet who writes things, and at the moment I'm writing about race and ethnicity in a sort of non-fiction kind of way, and speaking a lot in public about race and language and identity in the UK. So that's what I'm currently busy with.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Vera, what's your cultural background?
I am 100% ethnically Chinese, but I was born and I grew up in Malaysia, and I lived in Malaysia till I was 17 before moving to England for school.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that info. And what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
It's quite a long one, so I'm going to read it out, and then I'll say why I like it. It's something by Ira Glass, and I came across it a few years ago. It says, "Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there is a gap. For the first couple of years, you make stuff. It's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. Most people I know who do interesting creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have this special thing that we wanted to have. We all go through this. And if you're just starting out or you are still in this phase, you got to know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you'll finish one story. It's only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap, and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It's going to take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just got to fight your way through." End quote. And the reason I love this quote is, well, I like its length. I like the fact that he takes the time to explain the difficulty of things. I like it that it alludes to the fact that everyone has their own pace and rhythm. And as an artist, a lot of people talk about, I know a lot of people, and myself included, have this fear of starting, a fear of handing things in or making them public. But I discovered this quote. It really emphasized to me that I just need to produce stuff and have no shame. I know the stuff I write isn't perfect, and it doesn't matter. So yeah, that's my favorite quote.
I like that quote because it tells us the truth, right? I mean, we all start in the beginning with no clue what we're doing, and sometimes it's going to take time to figure out what it is that comes naturally to us, right? And especially as being Asian women, we're so great at comparing ourselves to other people, comparing our chapter 20 to their chapter 1, not knowing that they've gone through chapter 20. Or the other way around. I think I screwed that up. But nonetheless, we play the compare game so well. We don't know people's story. We just think, oh, they're so good, not knowing that they went through years and years and years of work and going through the hurdles and going through the obstacles. So, I like that you mentioned this, and that, the person who quoted this explained it in a way that we all can understand, and we know that, we just have to go through the work and just, like you said, be shameless and just keep on doing it. So thanks for sharing that. And in your own words, how would you define self-confidence?
Self-confidence to me is about having faith in the person you are. I've thought a lot about aspirations and sort of trying to be like someone else or as good as someone else, like we just discussed. And so having faith in the person you are, staying in your own shoes, you know, as you find out more about who you are, you'll realize what your true goals are, and you'll know that not everything is an opportunity. I like the idea of staying in your own shoes and not overstretching and not always wanting to be somewhere else or somebody else. Confidence to me is about remembering that, you know, we're so harsh on ourselves. We can be so harsh on ourselves, and I criticize myself for not achieving a lot of things, but remembering that I have billions of victories, big ones, small ones, that I've already achieved, and that these achievements, these victories are specific and precious to me. I like the word victories as well. All these things that I'm saying, all these phrases have come from friends and they've resonated and stuck with me. The other thing about self-confidence is, the idea of the authentic self. And I think a few years ago, I would have probably pulled a face or groaned because it all sounds a little bit too touchy-feely or hippie, but it makes total sense now. There's no point being... Confidence comes from digging into yourself and knowing yourself. And that's what anchors you no matter where you are or who you're with. I'm still working on it. It's a process. And it's about being the newest version of you and not the best, which is something I used to aspire to. But the purest, most authentic version of yourself.
I love the definition that you mentioned. You know, we are our own worst critics, and I'm big at that. And, you know, I have to kind of make aware of myself that, you know, you have to be also good to yourself and stop, you know, self-sabotaging and over-criticizing who you are, because in the end, we have to learn to love ourselves. So, you know, love the definition that you mentioned. And Vera, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I was chasing achievement. And the thing that's popping into my head right now from the quote and from your question is this idea of shame. And the flip side of that to me is being completely comfortable with making mistakes. As a performer, I was lucky enough to discover clowning and that kind of performance style. So not in a kind of, circus, red nose kind of thing. It's a very specific type of training where failure and mistakes and shame are actually positive things. And so before I discovered self-confidence, if that was the question, I chased opportunities. I really believed, or I really thought that achieving things was what defined me and gave me worth as a human being. And I was in hyperdrive. I was working so hard and generating all these meetings for myself. I believed that because I work in the arts, I had to be a self-starter, but I took it, it was quite extreme. I feared that if I wasn't online, I would cease to exist. And it wasn't until I was stuck on a job in the countryside for a few months, I realized, it sounds so obvious, but I realized that the world didn't implode. And I didn't leave any time or space to absorb or learn or to build on what I was doing. So I achieved a lot, but I didn't have time to process. And so I burned out. I guess I had a breakdown, and because I was overstretching myself and using events, and I was really upset about relying too much on my friends or asking too much from them. I was upset that I would disappoint them if I didn't keep achieving. Yeah, it was a tough time.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think, the overachieving personality is something that has been programmed into us as kids, whether it's from our parents, especially Asian parents. It's like, if you don't get an A, it's failure, or at school, everything is based on a certain grade, right? Like A, you're smart student. F, you're a dummy, right? And these things kind of screw us over in the end, because it's like, if we don't do this, we are, programmed to do a certain way. And if we don't do that certain way, we fail as a person, not knowing that that's just one way of doing things. It doesn't have to be that way. And there's, many different ways to achieve success or to achieve that confidence. So what was that point in your life when you realized that, you didn't always have to go and, chase opportunities or be the overachiever. What was that aha moment in your life?
I don't think I had a single moment. I remember key events and key discoveries. I mean, having a breakdown. And when I say breakdown, I mean, I had a really bad sort of spell of depression and anxiety and panic attacks. And when your body gives up on you, it's a good wake up call. And I didn't mention this before when I was talking to you, but I asked for help. I found a therapist and I was just talking through things. And this idea of defining my worth through achievements was kind of replaced with the idea that if I value my friends because they're wonderful people, not because of their achievements, why am I being so hard on myself? And so that was the beginning of like shifting the way I thought about where does value come from. I find that as an artist, because it's not success is not as easily quantifiable as, when you're at school and you can get grades. It's been really hard to go, well, what is success for me? So the process of finding out, I do want recognition. I'm not going to sort of pretend that I myself don't want recognition. But, what's been useful is saying, who do I want recognition from? Why do I want people to look to me? And as a person who's produced a lot of events and made a lot of work, it's made me think of my audience. And it comes down to, I want to make a difference to people who are my friends. I want to make a difference to people who are my friends or people who are not yet my friends. So even if they were strangers, and that sort of defines my audience and defines who I want to affect in life. And that was a key moment. And I find by pursuing these vague ideas that I have myself, it brings me into contact with other people who share this point of view. And they're rare and they're wonderful, but I've had a few teachers who've said these words back to me, and that's helped validate my point of view.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, I'm glad that you went deep down to like the core and figured out, why you were doing certain things, right? A lot of people don't realize they have all the answers within them. It's just they're asking the wrong questions, right? You are asking the right questions to yourself. Why were you searching for achievement? What was the main purpose? And, when we all learn to ask the right questions, the universe or whoever you believe in, gives us the answers, right? The answers will appear when we're ready. So, what was your life like after these realizations?
I feel that the more I work on myself by giving myself space and time to think, I have a deeper understanding of how I want to live, which makes me happier and more confident, more rooted, grounded in my shoes. But it's a process.
Thanks for sharing that, Vera. And, if a woman's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey to self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
Oh, God. I don't know whether there's like one tip. I think it's a shame that we have like different. When you asked me that question, I immediately thought, why is advice different for men and women? But it is, because we still don't have gender equality. And so very quickly, I would say, just find out a little bit about the context of the world. So things, institutional bias like sexism, find out the definition of feminism if you're not 100% sure. And I don't mean to sound patronizing, but I myself found out, a few years ago, I would go, I'm not a feminist. It sounds so aggressive. It's such a horrible word. And now it makes complete sense. It's about equality. And the reason why I say look at the big picture is because life can sometimes be really hard and it's not always our fault, See how the land lies and how you can position yourself within that. And by finding out who your allies are and the things that have come before, women who have been really strong and inspirational and in history who have fought your cause, and women who are doing it right now, and men who are allies. And also, if I'm speaking to any Asian women, there's always the thing about racism as well and how that intersects with how we're already treated as females. So I've found it useful to go, okay, why am I finding certain things difficult? Oh, it's because people have this idea of talking down to me because I'm a woman and because I'm Chinese and small and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, so look at the big picture and definitely invest in yourself, have faith in yourself. And the only way to move towards that, I think, is to give yourself the space.
Thanks for sharing those tips. Those are great. And it's great that, when you look at the bigger picture, it totally just makes sense. Thanks again. And if our listeners wanted to connect, get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Oh, yeah, sure. My website is verachok.org, and that takes you to my writing and things that I'm involved in. I do have a book. Well, no, I haven't written a book, but I've written for a book that is really interesting, and I really believe in it. And The Good Immigrant is specifically about writers of color sharing their experiences of existing in the UK. And they're really tough pieces of writing, really beautiful. And I've learned so much from reading these pieces because I think everyone generalizes. It's very hard to always put ourselves in other people's shoes and really understand their points of view. But the point is that we all have our stories. We all have our journeys. So I would recommend this book. You can find it. It's quite a tricksy website. unbound.com/books/the -good -immigrant. But I think you'll be typing this out in your website anyway.
Yes, we'll have the link over onto our website. So to our listeners, if you want to connect with Vera, you can also head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for Vera's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I really just want to thank Vera for taking the time to share her story with us. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. I hope it made sense.
It totally did, not to worry. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Get your free self-talk tape for building self-confidence by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.